After that weekend of violence, amid talks of a ceasefire deal, what's the latest on the violence and indeed on those the possibility for a deal?
Well, there are more and more indications that a deal may actually really be in the offing this time. Just in the last hour, a new minister in this government, Ze'ev Elkin, a member of the party that recently joined Netanyahu's coalition, came out and said that Amos Hochstein, President Biden's emissary, has received a green light from Israel. Now, this is the language that's been used in the last day or so. It must be said that before anybody can sign such a deal, the Israeli cabinet has to approve it.
France and the UK are considering sending troops to Ukraine as part of a European coalition. French officials say all options remain on the table, especially with U.S. aid under question as President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office in January. Talks between London and Paris have intensified, focusing on the creation of a European defense coalition to support Ukraine to counter concerns over risks of further Russian advancements. NATO says Russia's ground forces have grown since the war began, and Moscow has increased aerial attacks and missile launches. In response, the UK has announced its largest sanctions package yet, targeting Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers used to evade Western restrictions. British leaders are urging allies to ensure Ukraine has the resources to sustain its defenses through 2025. Now NATO is preparing for emergency talks, and France says it may provide long-range weapons.
Vladimir Putin is making moves again. The war in Ukraine is escalating. Russia has launched a sweeping attack with new and deadlier weapons. And the Russian president is blaming the West for this escalation.
As we have repeatedly emphasized, the regional conflict in Ukraine provoked by the West has acquired elements of a global character.
But now the situation in Ukraine is worsening. Looks like the war will intensify before it ends, and it will have casualties not limited to Russia and Ukraine.
Au fond, moi je trouve que notre rôle ici, au sein de l'Union européenne, c'est pas de commenter l'élection de Donald Trump, savoir si c'est bon ou pas bon. Il a été élu par le peuple américain et il va défendre l'intérêt des Américains. Et c'est légitime et c'est une bonne chose. La question, c'est est-ce que nous, on est prêt à défendre l'intérêt des Européens? C'est la seule question qui nous est posée. Et moi, je pense que c'est notre priorité. Et donc, ça ne doit être ni dans un transatlantisme qui serait naïf, ni dans la remise en cause de nos alliances, ni non plus dans un nationalisme étriqué qui ne nous permettrait pas de relever ce défi face à la Chine et aux États-Unis d'Amérique. Et donc, c'est un moment de l'histoire pour nous, Européens, qui est décisif. Au fond, la question qui nous est posée, voulons-nous lire l'histoire écrite par d'autres, les guerres lancées par Vladimir Poutine, les élections américaines, les choix faits par les Chinois en termes technologiques ou commerciaux, ou est-ce qu'on veut écrire l'histoire? Et moi, je pense qu'on a une force pour l'écrire. Nos économies sont fortes, nos pays ont des systèmes de défense sophistiqués, et on représente quelque chose. L'Union européenne, c'est 440 millions d'habitants avec ses 27 pays, et la communauté politique européenne, c'est plus de 700 millions d'habitants. Si on décide d'avoir conscience de ce qu'on représente géopolitiquement, commercialement, c'est une puissance inouïe. Il n'y a aucun marché de 700 millions d'habitants aussi uni par l'histoire, des intérêts, des valeurs que nous autour de cette table. Aucun. Si on se réveille et qu'on décide au fond de ne pas disparaître géopolitiquement et de ne pas être le marché d'ajustement des autres puissances économiquement et commercialement. Et donc pour moi, ce moment, c'est celui où on décide d'agir, de défendre nos intérêts nationaux et européens en même temps, de croire dans notre souveraineté, notre autonomie stratégique, et de dire au fond, on n'a pas envie simplement d'être des clients, d'être un marché qui est pris, de déléguer en fait à d'autres notre économie, nos choix technologiques ou notre sécurité, mais on veut pleinement se saisir de la question de la paix sur notre sol, de notre prospérité et de notre modèle démocratique. Pour moi, c'est ça les trois défis de la communauté politique européenne qu'on a à discuter ensemble.
Parce que c'est une folie, aller injecter des forces françaises dans une guerre où il y a déjà 1 million de victimes, 1000 km de front, alors qu'on n'en a pas les moyens, et que ça nous conduirait à une escalade que nous ne contrôlerions pas. Si on met, je vous donne un exemple très précis, vous mettez des forces, d'abord les Américains sont contre depuis le début parce qu'ils veulent justement éviter la Troisième Guerre mondiale, mais supposez que vous mettiez des forces françaises aujourd'hui le long de la ligne de front, ou même derrière. Supposez qu'à partir de ce moment-là, ils sont considérés comme belligérants. Oui. Les Russes cibleront ces forces et tueront 100, 200, 1000 soldats français. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait à ce moment-là? Où sont les forces de soutien, les renforts? On n'en a quasiment pas, puisqu'on a désarmé depuis 30 ans. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait donc? On remet des forces qui sont à nouveau décanillées, et après quoi? On escalade au niveau nucléaire. Donc quand on rentre dans ce genre de jeu, on fait attention à ce qu'on dit.
Oui.
L'époque est au sang-froid et à la désescalade. Pas à ce genre de déclaration guerrière, surtout quand on n'a pas les moyens. La ligne de front, elle fait 1000 km. Il y a 1 million de soldats engagés. L'armée française aujourd'hui n'est pas en mesure de participer sérieusement, durablement à une guerre de haute intensité. Tous nos militaires le savent. Il faut d'urgence réarmer. C'est une des leçons de cette guerre. La possession de l'arme nucléaire par la France, contrairement à ce qu'on espérait, ne nous protège pas de la guerre.
It's interesting you talk about the extremes of liberalism. So it's almost as if our culture has become so obsessed with identity that they've broken people down into every group they can think of, except, of course, their personality. Everything that makes an individual has been pushed to the side, and now we belong to all of these collectivist groups. It's like some kind of meta-collectivism. It's actually really quite scary. But, Michael, some commentators, you're talking about Europe and France, they are describing a witch hunt against France's Marine Le Pen, similar to the lawfare that Donald Trump suffered. Now, prosecutors in Paris have recommended that she be jailed and banned from public office for no less than 5 years. This is allegedly regarding the use of money for the EU Parliament aids, but plenty of people have weighed in on this and said it's very difficult to work out how to do this stuff properly, I mean, because of the bureaucracy. I have a quote here from the former Minister of the Interior. They said, and I quote, "It would be deeply shocking if Marine Le Pen were deemed ineligible. Let us not be afraid of democracy and avoid widening even further the gap between the elites and the vast majority of our fellow citizens." What are your thoughts about potential lawfare in France?
It's quite obvious this is lawfare, and the reason I say that is that the basic premise is that Le Pen and her colleagues have embezzled the party in order to pay some of their people. Now, if this is the case, and this is, they've broken the law, then obviously the rule of law should kick in. But this is not about that. The focus is on what the punishment will be, and effectively their punishment is preventing Marine Le Pen from running for president. Now, I understand at her she's had 3 goes at the presidency in the last time. I think she got 41.5% of the vote. With the changing mood in France, and especially with Macron, the way that he's been sort of getting on, at least from what we can see in the media, I dare say that she has a real sort of chance at winning the election. So we're seeing exactly the same response that we saw in the United States. They're using the law to prevent them from running. This is not about justice. It's about the injustice of, as you say, lawfare, and it's to do with politics. And, I think this is an emerging trend that I'm not sure how we're going to deal with this, but it's certainly something that will have to be dealt with in the future. We can't have it now that, whoever has the most money and the most lawyers gets to win politics. I mean, that's bureaucracy gone mad.
Well, I think Macron started running out of road in politics when he was reclined in his gold throne in one of those old French palaces while all the peasantry were protesting outside Parliament. That was the end of his political career, and now it's just hobbling toward the finish line.
On the other hand, this agreement, which Netanyahu has planned to bring to his cabinet tomorrow afternoon, seems to be kind of blowing up in his hands. The reason is his loss of credibility in recent months. Netanyahu has yet to share any of this agreement with his own ministers. Certainly, he hasn't said a word to the Israeli public. He hasn't offered a press conference in more than 3 months. And so you have a situation in which Israelis feel and fear that they're being sold a bill of goods. Several of his own ministers from his own party have already said that if this agreement, when they see it tomorrow, turns out to be a revamped version of UN Resolution 1701 from 2006, they will not vote for it. And the people, the more or less 80,000 Israelis and their mayors and their community heads who have been evacuated from their houses in the north for 14 months now, are saying a 60-day deal doesn't offer them anything. no buffer zone in Lebanon doesn't protect them, and they're not going back. And the victory Netanyahu really needed in hand was to be able to say, I am allowing you to go back home. Israel's now safe again. And he's not able to say it. So it's really unclear at this point how it will develop tomorrow, and how much Netanyahu will emerge even more weakened by this new deal.